The island is 10 miles off the coast of New Hampshire. You take a ferry from Rye or Portsmouth, and as you approach, you see some boats, a marine center-looking building by the shore, and a large old hotel up on a hill. The island is a mile long and scattered with buildings erected over the centuries where a fishing village once was, and before that, indigenous people's dwellings. As soon as you start the climb up the hill to the hotel to check in, the windswept romance of the place may enchant you as it did me when I first visited for the first time at the beginning of September. Your room, if you stay in the hotel, will be simple, furnished with bed and bureau, and a washing stand with an old-fashioned washing bowl and pitcher, and there's a large container of purified water down on the floor next to the bowl stand, which, if you make use of it to wash your hands or your face, will be emptied by one of the 100 or so young people who flock to the island every year to live there together and work there. They're called Pelicans, sharing a dream job on Star Island, which is where you are, on the Isle of Shoals. You will share the bathroom, and the only showers are way down several flights of stairs, but they're beautiful flights with bouquets of flowers on each landing. You saw a photo of one of the landings earlier with the wind coming through the lace curtain. Because you are on an island, you will be asked to use the showers only every second day to preserve water. You may be at Star Island for a private retreat, or you may be there for the week to attend one of their conferences, as Star Island is a Unitarian, Universalist, and United Church of Christ-owned camp and conference center. That has been its identity since 1915. There is worship every morning in the chapel, which you will approach by foot on a path, while others may be picked up in a golf cart called the Vicmobile. I don't know why, I just love that, and delivered to the door. And there is an evening service every evening as well. Before you head up the footpath, a pelican will hand you a small lantern containing a lit candle, and you will approach the chapel bearing this small light, which is taken from you inside and hung on a simple wooden peg shaped like a cross. A plaque inside the church will inform you that the villagers burned the church down for firewood in 1790. And you think about how cold it must have been. What a bad winter for them to have made such a decision. It is a magical place where meals are taken communally and there is companionable conversation and silence. The sunsets are so beautiful. They're a nightly event attended by most of the conferees who stand on the porch and murmur appreciation for the glorious sky and the planets. And the night that I was there, a group assembled for this jubilant salute to the heavens. In September, the island closes for conferences and business, and it prepares to winter over, perhaps in its own way, bracing itself for the storms and the whipping winds and long, long nights. It is at this time that visitors leave and the island is given into the care of one woman, a woman named Alexandra de Steiger, whose title is Winter Caretaker, and who has gone out to Star Island alone for over 20 years to live there for 5 months. She's dropped off in early November, and she is picked back up in early April. Her husband does go out occasionally by ferry, of course, to bring her supplies of food, but that's it. I will let her tell it. The solitude and beauty of the 9 deserted islands is especially appealing to me, with its rocky, wind-swept, often harsh environment where nature and its forces dominate. There, the rule that humans are only as significant as any other living inhabitant is more apparent. I am drawn to places that speak of this. They're getting increasingly hard to find in this crowded, hectic, modern, safe environment in which most of us live. There's a short documentary about Ms. de Steiger's life called Winter's Watch that I've watched a few times in order to appreciate her voice and beautiful photography, some of which we will be seeing right now, beginning with this image. Apparently in response to a question that I'm sure she gets asked all the time about the danger she willingly puts herself in year after year, being essentially marooned for 5 months at a time, she says, "You have to be at peace with the fact that something might happen and you might not make it through." It's good life advice. The documentary Winter's Watch is on YouTube, and there are 512 comments posted underneath it by viewers who feel compelled to share their opinion and reaction to this extraordinary job. People want to talk about solitude and loneliness. In many cases, people speak of their hunger to get away from it all and experience the kind of beautiful desolation and wildness of a winter on a deserted island. And in many cases, they express anxiety at the thought of such a thing, even though they long for it. Quite a few people felt it necessary to share how boring they felt it all was and how boring they thought Alexandra must be. Someone wrote, "She must be fun at parties." And I thought, yeah, I think she actually would be great at a party. One really bizarre person wrote, "This woman needs to talk to a clinical psychologist, not have her mental illness advertised and praised in the comment section." Someone's got some issues. And dozens of other people, of course, posted joke references to The Shining. Brian De Palma's thriller about a man, oh no, it's Stanley Kubrick, sorry, Stanley Kubrick. A thriller about a man who goes crazy working on a large, isolated, and haunted in a hotel in the wintertime. There's all these comments, red rum, red rum. If you know the movie, you know what that refers to. I was most interested and am most interested in the comments about loneliness and social interaction, as a lot of commentators wrote that they believed it is to risk literal insanity if one doesn't have enough human contact. People wrote that they felt that Alexandra de Steiger was very brave, and I think she is too, walking around the island, checking all of the buildings, climbing up on the roof to make repairs after storms, stabbing rats with a bayoneted walking stick that she carries, living on her own. But I don't agree that limited periods of solitude freely chosen is a risk factor for insanity. It most certainly is when used as punishment, which is why I pray every day for those prisoners in solitary confinement and support organizations that work to abolish it. But Alexandra de Steiger is obviously well suited for this hermit's existence, and she loves her 5 months on Star Island. One of my very best friends, he lives in Salem, has no ambition in life other than to spend time reading and thinking. And he only works jobs so that he can support his life of thinking and reading. And I actually respect that a lot. He is a rare duck, a person who opts entirely out of status and achievement markers in order to nurture a life of the mind. I too spend more time than the ordinary person thinking and reading. And I live alone and embrace solitude. But it can be unmooring Last winter, I got so lonely that I joked to my friends that I was becoming feral. Of course, my life was full of ministry with you and in the larger community, but I spent so much time in solitude and in silence that I began to withdraw to the point where I started to avoid social outings entirely. I would tell my friends that I was just too busy to join them for dinner or for theater or parties or concerts. And then when I did force myself to go, I felt so awkward and self-conscious that it would take me days to recover from the insecurity attacks I would suffer when I went. I wasn't unhappy, but I was definitely depressed. So during that season, which I came out of, and I go through those seasons. This is something I've gone through all of my life, so it wasn't anything new. I discovered a great podcast called The Lonely Hour, which the host Julia Bainbridge describes as being a show she created in response to her curiosity about, quote, how people attend to themselves in this era of overstimulation. She interviewed poet David White, whose poem I just shared with you, and whose work I've really liked for a long time. And here I'm going to share with you one of his comments that I found enormously helpful and that really ministered to me and continues to. I've listened to it over and over again so that I could transcribe it for you, and it's so beautiful. He said to her, I think one of the difficulties of today is that we put all our eggs in one basket, in that we try to hold the conversation entirely through human forms. And yet throughout our evolution as human beings, we've always held a conversation with a multiplicity of qualities, like with the blue of the sky, or the red in the sunset in the evening, or the movement of leaves, at the very top of a silent wood when the breeze is coming through, the sound of an owl in the evening, the smell of grass, the feel of a summer breeze on your skin. These are all conversations. These are actually all qualities. He has a wonderful Irish brogue, by the way. He says qualities. And it's just very strange, he continues, that we've defined the fact that you're just not in conversation with another human being as being alone. You're not alone. You're just not paying attention to these other thousands of qualities that we've co-evolved with over the thousands of years. So one of the reasons we're lonely is that we've forgotten that we have a friendship with the sky. We have a friendship with the ground. We have a friendship with our bodies. We have a friendship with the way our bodies respond to the natural world. I love this. It validates an experience I've always had that I suspect you have also had in your world. It's a conversation, a valid one. Conversation with the cobblestone streets of Cambridge, with the architecture in New York City. This perspective also aligns with my experience as a single, unpartnered, and never married person, that there are many ways to have romantic relationships with the world and in the world, and that our emphasis on coupling with one human partner can exclude many other ways to connect in love erotically with our lives. The ancient Jewish idea of the Sabbath itself as a bride, so beautiful, so sexy. Lecha dodi, come, my beloved, is part of the Sabbath prayer. One of the things I'll be doing on my sabbatical is being trained as a spiritual director at the Redemptorist Center in Tucson, Arizona. Spiritual direction is a special companioning made between human beings, but I greatly respect people like the nun Macrina Whitaker, who wrote about a barren time in her life when she had a tree as a spiritual director. And priest Matthew Fox, who spoke of his dog Tristram as his spiritual director. Some of you understand that. These conversations happen between souls. Very few or little words, or no words are necessary. During a recent talk about her life on Star Island, Alexandra de Steiger talked about her relationship with the wildlife on the island. She no longer has a dog with her out there because she realized over the years that that dog, although a beloved companion, would keep her from interacting with the native birds and critters. And someone during that talk made a reference to the Tom Hanks film Castaway, which is about a man who is marooned for 4 years on a desert island after a plane crash and survives in solitude before being rescued, partly by making a human kind of a friend, anthropomorphizing a volleyball named Wilson, and befriending it and having conversations with Wilson, during which you can tell he's hearing a response from Wilson. There he is having an argument with Wilson. When the ball is lost at sea, Chuck weeps inconsolably, and so does the audience. Wilson, I'm sorry. Remember that? We understand how much this inanimate companion has meant to this man. Commenting on the creation of the friend, Wilson, de Steiger says, Tom Hanks's character had it all wrong. He didn't need to create a human friend. If he had just spent time getting to know the animals on the island and allowing them to get to know him, he would have never been lonely. We are each other's most important conversation partners and fellow discoverers of the landscape, of our interior landscape and social environments. But when humans can't understand, or aren't there, or disappoint, or hurt, or perhaps just aren't very interesting, there is creation itself inviting us to listen more deeply, and perhaps to hear or receive more than we have imagined was there to know, from the rocks and the waves and the buildings and the clouds. Not just wisdom, not just intimations of the eternal and the holy, but friendship, affection for today, in the now. I lift up my eyes to the hills, to the mountains, whence cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth, wrote the psalmist thousands of years ago. And it has forever after been a custom of some Jewish people to have those words in the labor room where women are giving birth and then affixing them to a baby's crib or to the doorway of their room and sometimes to the doorway of a house. There is help, soul companionship, a conversation, and friendship in creation itself. May we affix this offering and this gift in our awareness and participate in it with gratitude.